and welcome back to Radio 2. So today we're going to be looking at Rock to Talk, which is in Valerie Geller from page 23 up until page 40. So we're also going to be looking at demos in detail. So the first section of this lecture will be about moving from a music radio station into talk, because a lot of people do music for quite a few years and then decide they'd like to try something new, and then they want to move into talk radio. But it's not as simple as simply moving. Okay, so we're going to have a look at that whole process. And then something that I think will be very important to all of you, and then something that you'll find very important, is how to put together a great demo, what a program manager will look out for, okay, what it is that you'll need to put into a demo, where do you send it off to, how to follow up with a demo, etc. Okay, so we're going to be looking at a lot of that, especially because this is your second year, so you'll want to start applying to radio stations by now. So that's where our big focus today will be. Yeah, so like I've said, module 2.12, Valerie Geller, chapter 4, page 23 to 40 is what we're looking at today. It's been a long time since the truly full service radio stations have disappeared. So most listeners have only heard of, but never actually heard, a station where music, interviews, news, sport, and personality segments were equal parts of the programming day. Not only that, but even the highly formatted stations have narrowed their focus into subcategories of their genres. And now with the advent of high definition online and satellite radio, formats now target audiences in even greater detail, and the trend is likely to continue. If a full service station appeared today, it would probably be researched and designed to fit that small subsector of the listening audience who have been determined to need nightclub music or political polling data or volleyball scores and agricultural reports. In music-based formats, you don't really get a lot of that personality segments anymore. Maybe in the morning and the afternoon drive show, but that's most of it. Morning shows tend to be filled with so many commitments. So you have news, sports, commercials, business reports, traffic, weather, other promotions. So there isn't that much time for personalities to emerge on air. And what we're finding, what's happening is that the great ones make it easy. I've said this before. When it comes to talk radio formats, this is where people perceive an opportunity to be free to creatively express themselves, something which they find they can't really do on music radio. Consequently, we're seeing an influx of people who want to do talk radio. Many of them smart, hardworking, and funny, but often having no experience in the format. And they all have one thing in common: they think it's going to be easy. After all, anyone can talk. It must be simple, right? Wrong. I can train you in the craft of broadcasting and help you improve your skills. But the one thing that I can't teach you is talent. That's a gift that you were born with. And even the most talented broadcasters work very hard if they're successful. Talk show hosts as individuals are a diverse group with a common element. They all tend to have strong opinions. They're funny, or at least they have a sense of humor, and they have original things to say. They stay topical, are interested in listeners' opinions, and enjoy interacting with people. These hosts connect with people in a real way. It's a real relationship, even though it often happens with one person in a small room with a microphone and the other in a kitchen, at a desk, or in a car. If you're working in a music format, you are ahead of the curve when it comes to launching a talk radio career because you've already been on air. Many music radio air personalities turn out to be just the right people to handle talk radio. They have a range of interests and understand the time constraints of radio. They also have already been schooled in the basics of formatics and why they are important. Think about yourselves. You already realize why formatics is important. Maintaining an audience requires great storytelling, and we've been hammering on storytelling a lot in the last couple of lessons. In music radio, the songs are often the stories, that's true. But when music hosts decide to become talk radio hosts, it's often the case of wanting to talk about the stories that are inspired by stories that the songs are telling or the stories behind the songs. Music radio hosts are comfortable working with all the properties of sound. Most of the good ones know how to edit sound, use it to set an emotional tone and understand how sound affects their thoughts and their moods. Those skills are a great asset when making the transition to personality radio. At the end of the day, the moral is be unique, be yourself, and create your own style. So there's a radio presenter who speaks about his success in terms of him playing his callers. Like he literally plays his callers like a DJ plays a song. Talk radio is not public service radio. That's important. You have to entertain your listeners. Just because someone calls the show does not mean they have a right to be on air. Remember, we've said that before. The primary purpose of a listener is to make you look good, not the other way around. You as the presenter are the reason why they're listening, okay? If you're listening to 2 minutes of a boring caller, it's the same as playing a song that nobody likes. Everyone would have tuned out. Think about it. What do you do when you hear a song that you don't like? You switch it off. You change it immediately. What do you do when a song comes on, whether you're listening to iTunes or on whichever platform you're listening? You skip it. So despite radio's long-running emphasis on targeting a youthful demographic, it's a mistake to let age be a prominent factor when judging talent. Remember, whether a person is 18 or whether they're 80 years old, if he or she captivates you with original thought and storytelling, can relate their own take on the truth and communicate an interest in life, you'll have a winner, regardless. So what else does a DJ bring to the table? Talent can bring you a long way, yes, but it must be strengthened by experience. Good voices in talk radio are secondary. It's what you say that matters the most. And then if we look at timing, a real advantage the Rock to Talkers have is timing. You can hear the polish and the experience of a personality trained by years of short segment breaks on the air. They know how to hit the point, get to it fast and get out. And then less is more. It's important to learn when to end a piece. In listening to audition material, you can hear the difference between an experienced talent or personality who's fought the clock and won, and a talented beginner who doesn't quite get the timing right yet. That training, which only comes from experience, is invaluable and shines through in talk radio, even without the tight restrictions of short songs and a format clock. The lesson here is just because you get a couple of hours to play with, don't waste it. If we look at a radio personality who's made the transition from music radio to talk radio, we can look at the personality Phil Hendrie. After a successful 20-year career in music radio, Hendrie was feeling cramped by the lack of freedom and phonetic restrictions when doing the morning drive at a Los Angeles rock station. When his station decided to make a change, Hendrie begged for the chance to try his hand at talk. A new LA talk station gave him the opportunity to host a weekend show. Back then, Hendrie was a creative guy with huge potential. He spent years as a radio vagabond, honing his talk skills. Hendrie has become famous for his amazing talent of hosting a show where he plays his own callers using dozens of voices who take on their own personalities. Callers become the hits of the show when they take the bait and phone in to argue with one of Hendrie's characters. Hendrie observes life, filters what he sees, adds his unique talent and lets it roll. His career path has moved towards TV and movies. So let's look at a few of the tips that Phil Hendrie gives us for creating powerful radio. The first thing he says there is get in there and flop. Try everything. Powerful radio is experimentation. If the station you're on now doesn't appreciate it, sooner or later you'll find one that does. Be a popular culture junkie, but not just TV and movies. It means noticing dress, road signs, vending machines, noticing faces, different accents, window tintings, house plants, snippets of conversations. Notice everything, record all of it. Prep your show so that the material is interesting to you first, your listeners second, and your callers third. Then be absolutely clear and focused as to what your show is about. Management tends to push around and overconsult talent that isn't. You'll be getting a lot of bad advice and taking a lot of bad advice. Okay, so be absolutely clear and focused about what you want your show to be about. Then keep your show lean. It's about you. If you don't need them, lose the sidekicks, the happy talk with the news person, the chronic callers, okay? Keep it lean. Don't pre-record bits, do them live. So what if you screw up a sound effect or a line? Your chances of succeeding will go up 100% when you do it live. And don't overwrite. Keep your ad-libbing skills sharp. Throw away the listener mail. If they have something to say, they'll call. Listeners who write to talk show hosts are oddballs. And lastly, listen to one air check a month maximum. Listening to too many air checks will only depress online reading news and editorials? Do you find yourself calling talk shows? Do you resent your program director telling you to shut up and read your liners? Do you hate the hits? Do you check your watch a lot and feel mostly bored during your shift? Do you enjoy taking calls on the air or do more phone bits than you're supposed to? Do you like doing interviews and wish you could do more? Do you long for more airtime to talk about the things that matter? What's happening in the news, in the town, etc.? So if you answer yes to these, consider talk radio. It might be a case of you're made to do talk radio and not music radio. Even if you get a chance for that on-air edition, it may not be the best way to strut your stuff. An audition is not the best of circumstances. Being on the hot seat is a nervous thing. People that audition well are a bit like people who do well at tests at school. Those who ace the tests are good test takers, but they're not necessarily the smartest or the best or the brightest talents. Programmers can unfortunately be fooled. They can hear a great demo or a great audition, hire the person, and then be very sorry later when that person is not as good as they expected them to be. Trudy Ryder, who used to be a radio personality, says that every person in the world is capable of 3 good talk shows. Each individual has a few things that he or she cares passionately about, at least for a few hours. After that, it gets much harder. Creative people constantly find new interests, new subjects they need to entertain themselves with. That's how they come up with different shows for every day. Trudy Ryder has gone on to do a career in as a major market talk show host, a writer, and she's now the host of Trudy Ryder's Exception to the Rule, a short-form nationally syndicated feature for CBS Radio. Let's look at her tops. Let's look at her tips. Let's look at her tips on how to audition for a talk radio station. So firstly there, audition as the entertainer you are, not as the host you think they want. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know on the air. Audiences prefer honesty and ignorance to artifice and arrogance. A little silence can be a valuable thing. Nice is a luxury you can't always afford. Establish rules for your show, then play by them. You have 50,000 watts and a microphone. The callers have only a phone and a radio. Give them a break. Never make fun of a caller after he or she is gone. The exception to the rule here would be when they hung up on you. Okay? Otherwise, you never make fun of a caller. Changing the name of the business and the people let you tell more of their story, so more of their truth or a bigger and a better lie. Okay, so change names. Not everyone who has done something interesting is interesting. Keep that in mind. Okay, they might have done something extremely interesting until you put them on air, and then it feels like the whole story is just flat. Lastly, everything is material. So absolutely everything in your life you can use as material. Okay, that's why I always hammer on about what happened in your life. Think about a story the weekend, something that we can see from different perspectives, different angles that we can change around and that we can utilize and make it universal for on air. Think of your audition as a spoken autobiography or narrative, where you are free to tell your favorite stories about yourself and about your life. This not only showcases your storytelling ability, which is a very important a very important part of talk radio, but it lets people get to know you in a very personal and powerful way. Some of the best auditions tell of meaningful experiences that have changed or moved people, experiences that have made them the way they are. The more personal a story, the more universal it often is. Another method for programmers who are considering an untested talent is to ask the host to do a hypothetical talk show. Ask, what would you talk about if given a few hours on air? Ask the host why they care about those subjects. Why would they be interesting? Ask them to do an opening monologue for their show with opinions and personal stories, or about some event of the day. You can offer a studio for recording this if you have one available. Still though, without an air check, it's definitely harder to find a program director or program manager who will risk putting you on the air. So how do you come up with some kind of presentation that will showcase your personality and potential as a talk host? How can you convince a programmer, or like I said, a program manager, to put you on as a substitute host to audition on the air? Your best weapon in getting a shot at auditioning a shift on the air will be a powerful demo. So let's start talking about demos. No one likes to make a demo. Talent will take any excuse. to hem and haw and procrastinate when a program manager says, send me your stuff. The general feeling is, I don't know what to put in my demo. I'm the worst judge of my own work. How will I know what is good and what is garbage? What really represents me? This is where having your own website can really help you. When you have your own site, you don't have to choose one particular type of show or talk format to submit. You can post several with descriptions, and the program director or the program manager can simply click on the topics and styles that seem to work best for their needs. But again, even the most experienced talk hosts tend to avoid this bigger task. So let's look at some ideas and techniques to help you create an audio demo. First and foremost, the air check should always leave the listener wanting more. The worst thing you can do is offer too much. It's like overfeeding a fish until it dies. If you're sending through an audio piece or an audio file, be sure to segment them into tracks or sub-files. That way the program manager can skip around more easily or dip in and out of your show. They can decide what they want to listen to. If you leave your audience just a little bit hungry, it'll pique their interest in you. Your goal is to get the program manager or anyone who can hire you to ask for more. Number 2, don't get paralyzed deciding what to post. Don't get paralyzed deciding what to send. If you have an hour showcasing your versatility, use that. If you have an hour showcasing only one aspect of your personality, use that. Then let the program manager ask you for more. Okay? Most program managers look for talent who are equally good with humor, substantive issues, interviews, and breaking news. Number 3, show me your heart. Show what you care about on your demo. Number 4, show your stuff. Showcase your technique. If you are the person preparing that demo, put your best stuff up top, even a montage of some highlights, then more details. If you are weeding through audition tracks, listen for that spark, the edge that with your guidance will make that person a pro. Number 5, this is your self-portrait. This demo should be exactly as you want to be perceived by a potential employer. Make your demo or audition not for the job you currently have, but for the job you want to have or the show you want to do. Keep in mind, the people listening want to hear not only what you have done, but also what you can do for them. Number 6, be yourself. There's nothing worse than being told that you were never as good as your demo. Your demo should be like a good, but not rare, hour. One where you really don't want to edit anything out, but not as if a perfect human being with your voice was sitting in front of you. I want whoever hires me for that demo to know what they're getting before I move my furniture. On your website, you can create a perfect self-portrait, but for your own good, make it an accurate one. Ryder warns that if in your typical day a caller changes their mind, or you must admit ignorance, or which drug the murderer was on, or screw up the name of the Afghani foreign minister, then that's the show you do. There is one exception to that case, and that is news. When it comes to news, you want an error-free audition. Number 7, showcase your most individual work. Program managers like to hear shows that originate in people's lives. You want to make people care about you. And then lastly, number 8, think like a program manager. Imagine your link being opened online. Now it's being played with an attentive, hopeful, and open-minded program manager beginning to hear your work. Then the phone rings. Ask yourself, would the program manager stop listening and get the phone? Or would they ignore it because they were too absorbed in hearing your work. Okay, so let's look at it now from the other side, when you are looking for talent. Make an addition that commands attention. Make an addition that commands attention. Music radio consultant Guy Zapolian puts it this way. There is an X factor. It's the feeling I get from listening to the talent. What do I listen to? Everything that comes in. As Bernard Gershon says, you have to review demos, place ads, network, and listen to your competition in both smaller and larger markets. Try to find someone who you think gets it, who has an original sound. If the person truly has potential, the rest can be learned. With most stations and satellite radio available via the computer, it's easier than ever to hear any host in any market in real time. Hosts should always remember when designing their websites to make it as easy as possible for potential employers to connect to their stations during their air shifts. What am I listening for? Anything that keeps me in a parked car in a dark garage with the groceries melting in the back seat because I have to hear the rest of the show. That's what I'm listening for. If I can't leave until I know what's going to happen next, you're in. When listening to a personality music show, Guy Zapolian asks, do they connect with the audience? Are there great phone calls where you get the feeling from the listener that they and the host are truly friends? Are they creative at selling the radio station, using promos, using liners? Do they still get excited by something that radio pros take for granted, but the listeners don't, which is the music? Other things that program managers listen out for in demo air checks is things like, do I laugh? First and foremost, I want to know if the host has a sense of humor. Do I want to keep on listening? Would I want this person as a friend? What did I learn from the show? Did I walk away from the show with a new perspective on a topic? Was the host able to persuade me to change my opinion? Is the host respectful to those who disagree? Can they fight fairly with a strong, intelligent caller? The host should have talent from the start, okay? That's a given. But developing energy, communication, and humor is tough. If a host or radio presenter does not possess these important vital traits, you should re-examine your hire. Very few people have it all. That's why there's a shortage of genius-level talk show hosts and entertainers. Most times, a leper doesn't change their spots. If you start without the basics, you could end up stuck with a host you're constantly trying to change rather than coach. News executive Bernard Gershon has hired many news writers, anchors, and reporters over the years. Most of what he wants in a candidate would be necessary qualities for anyone working on the air as well as for managers, because those qualities are intelligence, desire, and a sense of humor. Intelligence does not just mean being book smart or having a high IQ. Intelligence means the ability to solve problems, to complete complex tasks with resourcefulness, initiative, and with resolve. A good job candidate also needs to be intuitive, to understand what is on the listener's mind, what will get them tuned in. So if you're interviewing a potential talk show host or news personality, newscaster, you need to find out what they're interested in, what stories push their buttons. Even if those stories sound boring to you, let them explain. They might win you over. This is what makes a talk show, this is what makes a talk host or a newscaster great, the ability to communicate and excite. An intelligent job candidate will also be looking for new challenges. So if you're interviewing someone who's seen it all, who's done it all, who knows it all, move on. Curiosity is key to intelligence. So now your demo's done, okay? Now what? You've made what you think is the perfect ear check. It represents your best work. Your personality shines through. It's visual, informative, inspiring, funny. It has lots of truth in it. And you know you can just get the right person. You know that if you can just get the right person to hear it, you'll get the job. Unfortunately, this is where you will learn one of the most disheartening lessons in radio. Getting someone to listen to your work is harder than you think it is. People who listen to these demos are really busy. Okay, they're very busy people. It takes time to do justice to material people send. So you need to give them time. And yes, as talent, you might be very sensitive. You might call the program manager, send the demo, call again just to follow up, but you still don't hear back. Which is likely to make you quite discouraged, but don't let this discourage you. Remember that auditions tend to be 3 to 5 minutes long, and there are many of these sent through to program managers on a weekly basis. And talk air checks are longer, okay? They can be around 30 minutes long. It takes longer to listen to these. Whatever the format, there are always a lot of air checks waiting to be heard. And the number of auditions these program managers receive, like I said, from complete amateurs even, are staggering. And talk radio is an art, it's not a science. Finding those artists requires spending time sifting through the plethora of auditions that are emailed, mailed, handed out, or even dropped off at your door. Remember though what happens. Like I said, program managers are busy. If they've been busy on the road or traveling or with shows and things and they're jet lagged, they're exhausted, that's not when you want them to listen. Programmers generally listen to new material when they are in the market for talent. It would be wonderful if a radio station's needs coincided with our needs as presenters, but that's not the way it works, okay? Secondly, don't develop attitude. What does this mean? This means that you as talent can get very upset, very mad when a program manager doesn't get back to you immediately. So you take it personally. Some people simply give up. Some people ruin great opportunities for themselves, okay? If you call 50 times, you may get a no from the program manager just to get you off the phone, okay? So then you won't even listen. Then they won't even listen to your air check. So the goal is to be politely persistent, not obnoxious. Because sometimes your tenacity might impress a program manager enough to try and find a position for you, okay? And then when you look at when to send out your work, a logical time to start looking around is when you know that people are hiring, okay? Unless you just want to make a connection for later. So we know in South Africa, normally March, April, May is when the big shifts happen. So make sure that around that time, your demos get sent through. Remember, materials do get separated. It happens. So write your data on everything. Have backups, okay, available of anything and everything. If you want some more demo information, here is where you can go and look at it. Okay, so here are articles about air checks, which will just give some advice and tips and more lessons from those in radio about getting a job and sending an air check or an audition or a demo. And that brings us to the end of this lesson. Go have a look at that link I sent through to you. Go have a read through that so that you can start working on your demo, okay? So that you can start getting your content together and start sending it out. For now, I'm going to say goodbye until next time. Bye.